Imagine living in a city where families wake up to find their cars gone from their own driveways, where a single house can be home to dozens of people trying to escape the housing crisis, and where a city that was once seen as a symbol of the Canadian dream has become the center of growing concerns about safety, crime, and quality of life. This is the reality of Brampton in 2026. But how did one of Canada's fastest growing cities end up in this situation? In this video, you'll discover the dark side of Brampton. The surge in car theft has become one of the biggest problems facing Brampton in recent years. What was once considered a relatively isolated crime has become so common that it has completely changed the daily lives of many residents. Today, leaving your vehicle parked in the driveway overnight no longer provides the same sense of security it did just a few years ago. In neighborhoods across the city, homeowners have installed additional security cameras, floodlights, and other surveillance systems in an effort to make life harder for criminals. Brampton is part of the Peel region, an area that is consistently ranked among the hardest hit regions for vehicle theft anywhere in Canada. This increase did not happen by chance. Criminal organizations have moved away from opportunistic thefts and now operate with a high level of planning and coordination. In many cases, they monitor a homeowner's routine for days before making their move, identifying the times when the house is empty or when a vehicle remains parked for long periods. Their goal is to minimize the risk of confrontation and complete the entire operation within just a few minutes. The vehicles they target also follow a very specific pattern. SUVs such as the Toyota Highlander, Lexus RX, and Honda CR-V are consistently among the most stolen models. The reason is not just their high value, but also the strong demand for these vehicles in international markets. They are known for their reliability, durability, and ease of maintenance, making them extremely profitable for organized crime networks. Another alarming detail is that many of these vehicles do not stay in Canada for long. After being stolen, they are often taken to hidden warehouses where they receive fake license plates, have their identification numbers altered, or are held until the right moment for transport. From there, many are shipped through Canadian ports inside cargo containers and exported to different parts of the world. In many cases, by the time the owner reports the theft to the police, the vehicle is already hundreds of miles away, or even on another continent. The rise in home invasions is another factor that has contributed to the growing sense of insecurity in Brampton. In the past, criminals had to find a way to steal a vehicle directly from the street. Today, many have decided to go straight to the source, the owner's home. Instead of trying to bypass the increasingly sophisticated security systems installed in modern vehicles, many criminal groups now break into homes in the middle of the night to steal the keys and simply drive the vehicle out through the garage. This shift in strategy has made this type of crime even more alarming because it turns what was once a simple vehicle theft into a situation that puts entire families at risk. The pattern behind these crimes is often remarkably similar. Criminals first monitor the property, identify when the lights go out, study the family's daily routine, and determine which vehicles remain parked in the driveway or garage. Once they identify a high-value vehicle, especially SUVs and luxury cars, they wait for the ideal moment to strike. In many cases, they choose the early hours of the morning, when residents are asleep and the streets are almost completely empty. Once inside the house, their main objective is not always to steal everything they can find. In fact, many intruders ignore televisions, computers, and other electronic devices altogether. Instead, they head directly to the places where they believe the car keys are kept, such as an entryway table, the kitchen counter, or a small key holder near the front door. Within just a few minutes, they grab the keys, get into the vehicle, and leave before the homeowners even realize what has happened. That does not mean other valuables are left behind. During these home invasions, jewelry, luxury watches, cash, and other high-value items that can be easily carried away and resold also frequently stolen. Since the criminals are already inside the home, any small and valuable item becomes another opportunity for profit. For the victims, the financial loss can be devastating, but many say the psychological impact is even greater. When people think about organized crime in Brampton, many assume the city is simply dealing with the typical problems of a large urban area. However, numerous police investigations have revealed that the reality is far more complex. Over the past several years, authorities have uncovered highly structured criminal organizations operating well beyond the city's borders, maintaining connections with other Canadian provinces, and even international networks. This means that part of the criminal activity recorded in Brampton is not isolated, but instead forms part of larger operations that move significant amounts of money and function, much like legitimate businesses, with specialized roles, logistics, and long-term planning. One of the crimes that concerns authorities the most is extortion. Business owners across a wide range of industries have reported receiving threats demanding payments in exchange for so-called protection. In some cases, shop owners have received intimidating phone calls, text messages, or in-person visits, pressuring them to hand over money to avoid damage to their businesses or even threats against their family. This type of crime creates far more than financial losses. It generates a constant climate of fear. Many business owners hesitate to report these incidents immediately because they fear retaliation, making the work of law enforcement even more difficult. Another extremely sensitive issue under investigation is human trafficking. Although it remains largely hidden from public view, experts say it is one of the most profitable illegal activities in the world. Criminal organizations exploit vulnerable people searching for better opportunities by using false promises of employment, education, or immigration. In some cases, victims are subjected to forced labor, sexual exploitation, or other forms of abuse, completely stripping them of their freedom. Because these networks often operate across multiple cities and countries at the same time, investigations frequently require cooperation between several law enforcement agencies. The housing crisis is one of the issues that has transformed the reality of Brampton more than almost anything else over the past few decades. At first glance, the city looks like the typical Canadian suburb, with wide streets, quiet residential neighborhoods, and spacious homes. But behind that image lies a completely different reality. Rapid population growth, combined with steadily rising home prices and rental costs, has forced thousands of people to look for increasingly improvised ways to find a place to live. In many neighborhoods, a single house is no longer home to just one family. It is common to find properties divided into multiple rooms, rented out individually, where each tenant pays for a small private space instead of renting the entire home. In some cases, living rooms have been converted into makeshift bedrooms, garages have been transformed into living spaces, and even basements have been turned into separate housing units. The result is that far more people are living in a single home than it was originally designed to accommodate. Rental basements have become one of the defining symbols of this crisis. Many houses feature basements converted into self-contained apartments with a kitchen, bathroom, and separate entrance. While many of these units are built according to safety regulations, others have been created without permits or without meeting the standards required by local authorities. This can lead to problems such as poor ventilation, inadequate emergency exits, unsafe electrical installations, and conditions that increase the risk to residents during fires or other emergencies. Another increasingly common issue is overcrowded housing. In some homes, 2, 3, or even more families live under the same roof at the same time. People with no family relationship share kitchens, bathrooms, laundry rooms, and common areas simply because it is the only way they can afford the cost of housing. For many students, newly arrived workers, and families with limited incomes, sharing a home is no longer a choice. It has become a necessity. When people think about homelessness in Canada, the first images that usually come to mind are downtown Toronto or cities like Vancouver, where tents line sidewalks and fill entire parks. Because of that, many people assume Brampton is far removed from this problem. However, that perception has been changing rapidly. Although the city still has a smaller homeless population than downtown Toronto, local authorities and social service organizations acknowledge that the number of people experiencing homelessness has increased significantly in recent years, making it one of the community's most pressing social challenges. This increase did not happen overnight. It is the result of several factors that have been building over time. Housing costs have skyrocketed, rent has become increasingly expensive, and many families now spend a much larger portion of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. For someone who loses a job, faces unexpected financial hardship, or experiences serious family problems, it can take only a series of unfortunate events for their stability to disappear completely. Contrary to what many people assume, not everyone experiencing homelessness lives permanently on the streets. Some sleep in their cars, spend nights moving between the homes of friends or relatives, or stay in temporary shelters whenever a bed is available. Others set up small tents in secluded areas, parks, or vacant lots, trying to remain away from the city's busiest locations. This reality makes a significant part of the problem almost invisible to those who simply pass through the city during the day. As the situation has grown, Brampton has been forced to confront a difficult question. How do you balance providing support for vulnerable people while also addressing residents' concerns about the use of public spaces? The emergence of makeshift encampments has sparked debates over public safety, cleanliness, public health, and human rights. While some argue these encampments should be removed, others believe that clearing them without offering meaningful alternatives simply moves the problem to another neighborhood instead of addressing its root causes. Even so, solving this crisis is far from simple. Many people experiencing homelessness face challenges that extend well beyond the lack of housing. Unemployment, substance addiction, mental health issues, domestic violence, and family breakdown often overlap, making recovery a long and complicated process. That is why experts argue that addressing homelessness requires far more than simply building additional shelters. It also demands coordinated housing, healthcare, employment, and social support policies that tackle the underlying causes of housing insecurity. Few topics generate as much debate among Brampton residents as traffic. You only have to talk to people who live in the city or follow discussions on social media to realize that driving through its streets has become a major source of frustration for many. Frequent traffic jams, collisions, complaints about reckless driving, and the high cost of auto insurance have become part of a reality that, over the years, has shaped the city's reputation far beyond its borders. Much of this problem is linked to Brampton's rapid growth. The population has expanded much faster than the city's road infrastructure. New neighborhoods have developed quickly, thousands of people now use the same major roads every day, and the number of vehicles has continued to rise. As a result, the road network operates close to its limits during many hours of the day. During peak traffic periods, trips that should take only a few minutes can easily take twice as long, or even longer. Traffic congestion is especially common on the major roads connecting Brampton to the rest of the Greater Toronto Area. Since many residents commute to neighboring cities for work, thousands of vehicles leave Brampton early every morning and return late in the afternoon. This constant flow of commuters turns major streets and highways into long lines of traffic, increasing travel times, fuel consumption, and the daily stress of drivers. But Brampton's traffic problems are not just about the number of vehicles on the road. The city is also frequently mentioned in discussions about its high number of traffic collisions. While accidents occur in every major urban area, many residents say certain intersections and major roads experience crashes at an alarming rate. Momentary distractions, speeding, unsafe lane changes, and ignoring traffic laws are among the factors that contribute to the situation, making everyday driving far more stressful for those who regularly travel through the city. When a city experiences an increase in different types of crime, one of the first consequences is often reflected in the relationship between the public and law enforcement. In Brampton, this conversation has become increasingly common in recent years. At community meetings, in interviews, on local radio programs, and especially across social media, many residents have voiced the same concern: the feeling that the public safety system is struggling to keep pace with the rapid evolution of crime. Although this perception does not represent the experience of every resident, and many cases are successfully resolved, it appears often enough to become one of the city's most widely discussed issues. One of the most common complaints involves delays in certain investigations. For crime victims, the expectation is that authorities will respond quickly, since the first hours after an incident are often considered critical for gathering evidence, identifying suspects, and increasing the chances of solving the case. However, in a city that has grown rapidly and now serves an ever larger population, the demand for police services has also increased significantly. As a result, investigators frequently have to manage a large number of cases at the same time, prioritizing them according to their seriousness. From the victim's perspective, this reality can be extremely frustrating. Many people report feeling that, after filing a police report, the investigation moves slowly, or that updates arrive far less frequently than expected. Even when authorities are actively working on a case, the lack of regular communication can create anxiety and the impression that little progress is being made behind the scenes. This perception has fueled public debate over the need for greater investment in police staffing, technology, and investigative resources. Another issue frequently raised by the community is the feeling of impunity. When a crime receives significant media attention or spreads widely across social media, residents naturally expect a swift response from law enforcement. When that response takes time, or when there is little public information about arrests or convictions, many people begin to believe that those responsible are unlikely to face justice. That perception does not always reflect the actual outcome of an investigation, since many cases require months of evidence gathering, forensic analysis, and legal proceedings before reaching the courts. Even so, for many residents, the time required for the justice system to run its course can easily be interpreted as a lack of accountability.